The security camera footage shows it all, Karen's designer heels clicking away as 5-year-old Emma's screams echo from the abandoned subway tunnel. "Not my problem," she mutters, stepping over the debris that trapped the child. But what Karen doesn't know is that Emma's father isn't just any concerned parent. He's Marcus Ghost Sullivan, a Navy SEAL who's never failed a mission, never left a man behind, and never shown mercy to those who threaten his family. When he discovers what Karen did to his daughter, she's about to learn that some fathers don't just seek justice, they deliver it. The morning fog clung to Seattle's streets like a shroud, muffling the sounds of the city awakening. Marcus Sullivan adjusted his rearview mirror one last time, catching a glimpse of his daughter Emma in her booster seat, her auburn curls catching the pale sunlight filtering through the windshield. She was humming something off-key, a melody she'd learned at preschool, her small fingers tracing patterns on the fogged window. "Daddy, why do you have to go away again?" Emma's voice was barely above a whisper, but it hit him like a sniper's bullet to the chest. Marcus pulled the truck into the parking lot of Sunshine Elementary, the engine's rumble dying to a whisper. He'd been dreading this moment for weeks. Another deployment, another mission that would take him away from the only thing that mattered. 3 months in Syria. 3 months of wondering if he'd ever see those green eyes again. "Because Daddy helps people who are in trouble," he said, turning to face her. "Just like superheroes in your books." Emma's face scrunched up in the way it always did when she was thinking hard. "But superheroes don't leave their families." The words cut deep, but Marcus had learned to compartmentalize pain. It was a necessary skill in his line of work. He unbuckled his seatbelt and reached back to smooth her hair. "This superhero always comes back home. Promise." They walked hand in hand toward the school's entrance, Marcus's trained eyes automatically scanning for threats, exits, potential cover. Old habits. Emma skipped beside him, her frozen backpack bouncing with each step. "Mr. Sullivan." A voice called from behind them. Marcus turned to see Karen Whitmore approaching, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression already twisted with irritation. She was one of those women who wielded her perceived authority like a weapon, PDA president. Neighborhood watch coordinator, the kind of person who called the police on kids selling lemonade without permits. "I'm in the middle of something important," Karen snapped into her phone, then covered the mouthpiece. "We need to talk about Emma's aftercare arrangements." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "What about them?" "Well, with you deploying and your sister being unreliable," Karen's voice dripped with disdain, "I've taken the liberty of contacting Child Protective Services. They need to do a welfare check." The morning air suddenly felt electric, charged with the kind of tension that preceded violence. Marcus had killed men for less than what Karen was implying about his family. But Emma was watching, and she didn't need to see her father's other side. "Not yet. My sister Sarah is perfectly capable of caring for Emma," Marcus said, his voice deadly calm. "She's been vetted by the military and cleared for emergency contact." Karen's laugh was sharp and cold. "A bartender with a history of..." She paused. "Dramatically poor choices." "I don't think so. The children in this district deserve better protection." Emma tugged on Marcus's hand, sensing the tension. "Daddy, I don't like the mean lady." "Go inside, princess," Marcus said softly. "I'll watch. You walk to your classroom." As Emma skipped away, Marcus stepped closer to Karen. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a man who'd seen too much death, dealt too much of it himself. "Let me be crystal clear. My daughter is my world. Anyone who threatens her well-being, anyone who tries to separate us, becomes my primary objective. Are we understanding each other?" Karen's eyes flashed with indignation. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining the natural order of things." Marcus's smile was razor-thin. "Have a wonderful day, Ms. Whitmore." He watched Emma disappear into the building, then climbed back into his truck. 3 hours until his flight. 3 hours to make sure everything was perfect for Emma's care while he was gone, but the universe had other plans. The call came at 1:47 p.m., just as Marcus was finishing his final equipment check at the base. Sarah's voice was strangled with panic. "Marcus, Emma's missing. The school says she never made it to afternoon pickup." They are saying she might have wandered off during recess, but the security footage shows her walking toward the old metro construction site with some other kids. Marcus's blood turned to ice. The metro site had been abandoned for months, a maze of half-finished tunnels and unstable ground. Every parent in the district had been warned to keep their children away. "I'm on my way," he said, already moving toward his truck. "The police are already searching, but Marcus, there's something else." Karen Whitmore was supposed to be supervising the afternoon playground. She left her post early. Just walked away. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he raced through traffic. Every red light was an eternity, every slow driver an obstacle between him and his daughter. The radio crackled with emergency frequencies, search and rescue teams, police units, the growing hysteria of a community in crisis. He reached the construction site as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. The scene was controlled. Chaos, police cars, fire trucks, parents clustered in desperate groups, their faces etched with the universal fear of every parent's worst nightmare. Marcus found the incident commander, a tired-looking sergeant named Rodriguez. "I'm Emma Sullivan's father," he said. "What's the situation?" Rodriguez consulted his clipboard. "We've got teams in the tunnels, but it's slow going. The construction company left the site in a dangerous state, loose concrete, unstable supports, flooding in the lower levels. We've had to evacuate twice already." "How many kids went down there?" "4 confirmed. We've recovered 3 minor injuries, mostly scrapes and panic." "But your daughter?" Rodriguez's voice trailed off. "But my daughter what?" "She's deeper in the system. The other kids said she fell through a weak section of flooring, down to the lower level. We can hear her calling for help, but we can't reach her safely." Marcus felt something cold and primal awakening in his chest. "I'm going in." "Sir, I can't allow that." "The structural integrity, Sergeant," Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to life or death decisions. "I'm a Navy SEAL. I've extracted personnel from collapsed buildings in 3 different war zones. You can either waste time arguing with me, or you can point me toward my daughter." Rodriguez studied him for a moment, then nodded. "The access point is through the main tunnel entrance. But I have to warn you, we lost radio contact with the last team that went down. Something's wrong with the communication system." Marcus was already moving toward the tunnel entrance when a voice stopped him cold. "This is exactly why that child shouldn't be in regular foster care." He turned to see Karen Whitmore talking to a woman with a clipboard, someone from Child Protective Services. They were standing near the command post, Karen's voice carrying clearly across the chaos. "The father's military, which means he's unstable and violent. The aunt is a known alcoholic. That little girl would be better off in state custody where she can be properly supervised." The woman with the clipboard was nodding, taking notes. "We'll definitely need to investigate once the immediate crisis is resolved. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." Marcus felt his vision narrow to a tunnel. He'd heard those words before, in different contexts, about different targets. The kind of people who needed to be eliminated for the greater good, but Emma's voice, faint and terrified, echoed from the tunnel mouth. "Daddy! Daddy, help me!" He forced himself to focus. "Mission first. Always mission first." Marcus grabbed a flashlight and rope from the rescue equipment, then disappeared into the darkness of the tunnel. The concrete walls were slick with moisture, and the air smelled of rust and decay. His footsteps echoed in the narrow space, each sound amplified by the confined area. "Emma! Can you hear me?" Her voice came back, weaker now, tinged with exhaustion and fear. "Daddy! I'm hurt. I can't move." Marcus followed the sound deeper into the tunnel system, his trained senses mapping the space, calculating distances, identifying potential hazards. The floor was littered with construction debris, and in several places, the ceiling had partially collapsed. He found the hole Emma had fallen through, a jagged opening in the concrete where the support structure had failed. Below, about 12 feet down, he could see a small figure huddled against the wall. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm here. Daddy's here." She looked up, her face streaked with tears and dirt, her left leg bent at an unnatural angle. I knew you'd come. I knew you wouldn't. Leave me. Marcus secured the rope and rappelled down into the lower chamber. The space was cramped, filled with standing water and debris. Emma was trapped under a fallen concrete beam, her leg pinned but not crushed. This is going to hurt for a second, he said, carefully lifting the beam. Emma cried out, but he quickly wrapped her in his jacket and lifted her in his arms. Daddy, I was so scared, she whispered against his chest. I know, princess. But you're safe now. We are going home. The extraction was slow and careful. Marcus had to navigate through unstable areas, so. The text message arrived at 0500 hours, just as Marcus was finishing his third cup of coffee in the hospital cafeteria. His contact from Damascus, a man known only as a Cypher, never failed to deliver, package ready for pickup. Usual dead drop. You're going to find this interesting. See. Marcus glanced through the window of Emma's room. She was still sleeping, her small form dwarfed by the hospital bed, her broken leg elevated and wrapped in a bright pink cast. Sarah sat beside her, dark circles under her eyes, her protective instincts fully activated since the incident. I need to run an errand, Marcus said quietly as he entered the room. Will you be okay for a few hours? Sarah looked up from her book. She's not going anywhere, and neither am I. The nurses said she probably won't wake up until this afternoon. Anyway. She paused, studying his face. Marcus, what are you planning? Just tying up some loose ends. That's what you said before you disappeared for 3 weeks in Afghanistan and came back with that scar on your shoulder. Marcus kissed Emma's forehead, breathing in the antiseptic smell of the hospital mixed with her familiar scent. This is different. This is personal. The dead drop was in the same place it had been for 15 years, a locker at the bus station. Downtown, key taped under the sink in the men's restroom. Marcus retrieved the thick manila envelope and found a quiet corner to review its contents. What he found made his blood run cold. Karen Whitmore wasn't just a power-hungry PDA president. She was a predator who'd been systematically destroying families for years, using her position as a volunteer child advocate to target single parents, immigrants, and anyone she deemed unfit. The pattern was consistent and devastating. The Rodriguez family, father deported, children placed in foster care after Karen reported suspicious activity that turned out to be a birthday party. The Johnsons, mother lost custody after Karen claimed she saw drug paraphernalia that was later proven to be prescription medication. The Patels, forced to relocate after Karen's harassment campaign made their lives unbearable, but the most damning evidence was recent security footage from the school showing Karen deliberately leaving her post during afternoon supervision. Her phone records showing she'd been arguing with her husband about money problems, and most shocking of all, a recording of her conversation with the CPS worker after Emma's rescue. That child is worth at least $3,000 a month in state funding, Karen's voice was clear on the recording. And with the father's military background, we can easily build a case for PTSD and violent tendencies. It's a slam dunk. Marcus read the financial records twice to make sure he understood correctly. Karen had been receiving kickbacks from a private foster care agency, money for every child she helped remove from their homes. Emma wasn't just another target, she was a payday. The envelope contained one more item, a USB drive labeled insurance. The accompanying note from Cypher was brief: she's been recording her conversations with CPS for months. Thought you might find them educational. Marcus drove back to the hospital in a state of controlled fury. He'd faced enemy combatants, survived torture, led men through impossible missions, but nothing had prepared him for the depth of Karen's betrayal. She hadn't just endangered his daughter, she'd turned child welfare into a profit center. He found Sarah in the hallway, pacing with nervous energy. The doctor wants to talk to you, she said. Emma's asking for you, and there's something else. That woman, Karen, she's been calling the hospital. She told them she's conducting a welfare check and needs to interview Emma alone. Marcus felt his vision narrow. What did you tell them? I told them to go to hell, but Marcus, they are scared. She's throwing around legal terms, talking about court orders and mandatory reporting. The staff doesn't know what to do. Where is she now? Downstairs. In the admin office. She's been there for an hour, probably filling out paperwork. Marcus handed Sarah the envelope. Keep this safe. If something happens to me, give it to Detective Rodriguez. He'll know what to do with it. What are you going to do? I'm going to have a conversation with Ms. Whitmore. A very direct conversation. Marcus took the elevator to the administrative floor, his mind automatically shifting into operational mode. The office was busy, nurses completing paperwork, administrators handling insurance claims, the usual chaos of a hospital bureaucracy. He spotted Karen immediately, sitting across from a harried-looking social worker, her voice carrying across the room. The father is clearly unstable, Karen was saying. He went into those tunnels like some kind of vigilante. That's not normal behavior for a civilian. The child needs immediate protective custody. The social worker, a young woman named Janet according to her nameplate, looked overwhelmed. But Ms. Whitmore, the father saved his daughter's life. The police report says he performed heroically. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Karen snapped. This hero complex is a classic sign of PTSD. He's a ticking time bomb, and that little girl is going to pay the price. Marcus approached the desk, his footsteps silent on the linoleum floor. Excuse me, ladies. I couldn't help but overhear my name. Karen's face went pale, but she quickly recovered her composure. Mr. Sullivan. I was just explaining to Janet here that we have some concerns about Emma's home environment. Is that right? Marcus pulled up a chair and sat down, his movements deliberate and controlled. What kind of concerns? Well, for instance, your reaction to the crisis yesterday was extreme. Most parents would have waited for the professionals to handle the situation. Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Most parents don't have the training to extract personnel from collapsed structures. I do. Should I have let my daughter die to make you more comfortable? Janet shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Mr. Sullivan, I want to assure you that we are not questioning your love for your daughter. We are just trying to understand. I'll tell you what you need to understand, Marcus interrupted, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow commanded more attention than shouting. Ms. Whitmore abandoned her post yesterday. She left children unsupervised so she could make phone calls. If she'd been doing her job, Emma would never have been in that tunnel. Karen's face flushed red. That's completely false. I had a family emergency. Your phone records show you were arguing with your husband about credit card debt, Marcus said quietly. Not exactly an emergency. The color drained from Karen's face. How did you? I also know about your arrangement with Crossroads Foster Services. $3,000 per placement, with bonuses for high-maintenance cases. Military families are particularly lucrative, aren't they? Janet's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Marcus pulled out his phone and played a few seconds of audio from the USB drive. Karen's voice filled the small office. That child is worth at least $3,000 a month in state funding. That's illegal surveillance. Karen jumped to her feet. You can't record people without consent. I didn't record anything, Marcus said calmly. You did. For insurance purposes, I assume. Smart woman. Too bad you got greedy. Karen's face was now ashen. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, but Marcus's voice stopped her. We are not finished, Ms. Whitmore. She turned back, her eyes blazing with desperate fury. You think you can intimidate me? I know people. I have connections. I'll make sure you never see that child again. Marcus stood slowly, his full height casting a shadow across the desk. You know what I find interesting about people like you? You're so busy playing games with other people's lives that you forget. Some people don't play games. Some people just solve problems. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining cause and effect. You hurt my family, you become my problem. I solve problems permanently. Karen's hand trembled as she reached for the door handle. Janet, you're a witness to this. He's threatening me. But Janet was staring at her phone, scrolling through news articles. Ms. Whitmore, is it true that the Martinez family lost custody of their children because of your report? And the Johnsons? My God, there are dozens of families here. Oh. I was doing my job. Protecting children, you were collecting bounties, Marcus said. And yesterday, you almost got my daughter killed because you were too busy planning your next payday to do your actual job. Karen fled the office, her heels clicking frantically on the linoleum. Marcus watched her go, then turned back to Janet. I assume there won't be any more welfare checks on my family. Janet shook her head, still staring at her phone. Mr. Sullivan, if what you're saying is true, this is criminal. We need to report this to the police. I'm sure you'll do the right thing, Marcus said. I have complete faith in the system. But as he walked back to Emma's room, Marcus knew the system wouldn't be enough. Karen had spent years destroying families, and even if she was eventually prosecuted, the damage was done. Children had been traumatized, parents had lost their kids, lives had been ruined. The system was about justice. Marcus was about something more immediate. He found Emma awake, her green eyes bright despite the pain medication. Daddy. Sarah said you went to fight the mean lady. I just had a conversation with her, Princess. How are you feeling? My leg hurts, but the doctor said I can go home tomorrow if I promise to use crutches. She paused, studying his face. Ah. You still going away? On your mission? Marcus sat down beside her bed and took her small hand in his. Not anymore. Oh. Karen Whitmore's perfectly ordered world began to collapse at exactly 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after Emma's rescue. She was sitting in her home office, surrounded by case files and legal documents, when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. Karen Whitmore. This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Seattle Police Department. We need to speak with you about your involvement with Crossroads Foster Services. Karen's hand tightened on the phone. I'm not sure what you mean. I volunteer with several child welfare organizations. We have recordings of conversations between you and agency representatives discussing payment arrangements for child placements. We'd like you to come in for questioning. The phone slipped from Karen's fingers, clattering onto her desk. Through her window, she could see her neighbor Mrs. Patterson watering her garden, oblivious to the fact that Karen's entire life was about to implode. She called her lawyer first, then her husband Richard, who was in the middle of a sales presentation in Portland. His voice was strained when he answered. Karen, I can't talk right now. I'm with clients. Richard, the police want to question me about the foster care thing. They have recordings. Silence stretched between them like a chasm. When Richard finally spoke, his voice was cold. What recordings? I don't know. Someone's been investigating me. I think it's that military guy, Sullivan. He threatened me at the hospital. Jesus Christ, Karen. I told you this would happen. I told you to stop playing games with people's kids. This isn't a game. These children need protection from unfit parents. You were getting paid $3,000 per placement. Richard's voice cracked with fury. You destroyed families for money. Do you understand what you've done to us? The line went dead. Karen stared at the phone, then at her reflection in the computer screen. For the first time in years, she saw herself clearly, not as a protector of children, but as something else. Entirely, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. A friend. Karen's fingers trembled as she opened her laptop. The email contained a single video file with no message. She clicked play and watched security footage from the school playground, footage that showed her leaving her post, walking away from the children she was supposed to supervise, talking on her phone while Emma and the other kids wandered toward the construction site. The timestamp showed exactly when she'd abandoned her responsibility. The audio was clear enough to hear her conversation with Richard about their credit card debt, her voice sharp with irritation about having to babysit other people's brats. A second email arrived while she was watching. Channel 7 News will be airing this tonight at 11 p.m. You might want to prepare a statement. Karen's hands shook as she reached for her phone to call her lawyer, but it rang before she could dial. Ms. Whitmore. This is Principal Morrison from Sunshine Elementary. I need you to come in immediately. We've received some very disturbing information about your volunteer activities. By noon, Karen was sitting in the principal's office, facing a panel that included Morrison, the school district's legal counsel, and 2 detectives. The video played on a large screen, showing her negligence in stark detail. Ms. Whitmore, Principal Morrison said, his voice heavy with disappointment, Emma Sullivan nearly died because you abandoned your post. How do you explain this? Karen straightened in her chair, trying to summon the authority that had served her so well over the years. I had a family emergency. I was only gone for a few minutes. 17 minutes, Detective Chen corrected. And your phone records show you were arguing with your husband about finances, not dealing with an emergency. That's private information. You can't, we have a warrant, the second detective interrupted. Ms. Whitmore, we also have evidence that you've been receiving payments from Crossroads Foster Services for child placements. That's fraud, conspiracy, and violation of state child welfare laws. The room seemed to spin around Karen. I was protecting those children. Their parents were unfit, the Rodriguez family. Detective Chen opened a file. Father deported based on your false report about gang activity. Turns out he was a construction worker with no criminal record. The children are still in foster care. The Johnson family. Mother lost custody based on your claim that you saw drug paraphernalia. It was prescription medication for her diabetes. The Patel family. Forced to relocate after your harassment campaign. The father lost his job, the mother had a nervous breakdown. Each name hit Karen like a physical blow. She'd never thought about the families afterward, never considered the long-term consequences of her actions. They were just cases, just problems to be solved. I was doing my job, she whispered. Your job was to protect children, Principal Morrison said. Instead, you traumatized them. You separated families. You nearly got Emma Sullivan killed. That's not. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. But they did get hurt, Detective Chen said. Dozens of families destroyed, children traumatized. Parents who lost everything. And you got paid for it. Karen felt the walls closing in. I want my lawyer. That's your right. But Ms. Whitmore, this is just the beginning. We've identified 47 cases where you were involved in child removals. We are reopening all of them. As Karen left the school, she found a crowd of reporters waiting in the parking lot. Someone had tipped them off about her presence. Cameras flashed as she hurried toward her car, questions shouted at her from all directions. Ms. Whitmore, is it true you were paid to separate families? How do you respond to allegations that you endangered children? What about Emma Sullivan? Do you take responsibility for her injuries? Karen pushed through the crowd, her face burning with humiliation. She'd spent years being the one asking the questions, the one in control. Now she was the target, the villain. In someone else's story, she drove home in a daze, but as she turned onto her street, she saw news vans parked outside her house. Neighbors stood in clusters on their lawns, pointing and whispering. Mrs. Patterson, who'd always been so friendly, turned away when Karen looked in her direction. Karen parked at the end of the block and walked to her house through the backyard. Inside, she found Richard's suitcase open on their bed, half-packed with his clothes. You're leaving? She asked. Richard didn't look up from his packing. My office got calls all morning. Reporters asking about my wife's activities. I've been suspended pending investigation. Richard, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been destroying families for money. That you put a 5-year-old in mortal danger because you were too busy arguing with me about credit cards to do your job. Karen sank onto the bed. I was trying to protect children. Some of those parents really were unfit. Maybe some of them were. But you didn't care about the children, Karen. You cared about the money. And now everyone knows it. Richard zipped his suitcase and headed for the door. I'm staying at my brother's place. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. You can't leave me now. I need you. Richard paused at the doorway. Those families you destroyed needed each other too. Didn't stop you from tearing them apart. The House felt enormous and empty after Richard left. Karen sat in her kitchen, staring at her phone as messages poured in, angry voicemails from parents whose lives she'd disrupted, reporters requesting interviews, formal notices from various organizations. Terminating her volunteer positions. At 6 p.m., her doorbell rang. Karen peered through the peephole and saw a young woman with a baby in her arms, standing beside a man in a military uniform. She opened the door cautiously. "Yes? Ms. Whitmore. I'm Lisa Rodriguez. You had my husband deported 2 years ago. You told immigration that he was gang-affiliated." Karen's stomach dropped. "Oh. I don't know what you're talking about. My daughter was 6 months old when you destroyed our family. She's never met her father because of your lies." Lisa's voice was steady, but tears streamed down her face. "Do you even remember us?" Karen started to close the door, but the man in uniform put his hand out to stop her. "I'm Staff Sergeant Williams. I'm here because Lisa asked me to witness this conversation. She wants you to see what you did." "I was protecting children from their father." Lisa's voice cracked. "From a man who worked 2 jobs to support us. Who coached Little League on weekends. Who never even had a parking ticket." Karen felt something breaking inside her chest. "Oh. I thought you thought wrong. About us, about dozens of other families. And now everyone knows what you really are." Lisa adjusted the baby in her arms. "My daughter asks about her daddy every day. She's 2 years old and she doesn't understand why he can't come home. How do I explain that to her? How do I tell her that a woman who claimed to be protecting children destroyed our family for money?" Karen couldn't speak. The weight of what she'd done was finally hitting her, not as abstract case files but as real people with real pain. "I just wanted you to see us," Lisa said. "To remember that we are not just numbers on your reports. We are human beings and you destroyed our lives." They left without another word, but Karen stood in her doorway watching them go. The baby looked back over Lisa's shoulder, her dark eyes curious and innocent. For the first time in years, Karen Whitmore understood exactly what she'd lost. Not just her career, her marriage, her reputation, but her humanity. Somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten that the families she targeted. Emma's laughter echoed through the Sullivan house as she maneuvered her bright pink crutches around the furniture, turning her injury into an adventure. Marcus watched from the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand, as his daughter showed Sarah how she could hop like a bunny on one foot. "Daddy, look. I'm getting really good at this." Emma called out, beaming with pride. The simple joy in her voice was everything Marcus needed to hear. She was healing, both physically and emotionally. The nightmares about being trapped underground had stopped 3 days ago, replaced by excited stories about her brave daddy who came to rescue her. Marcus's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. From Cypher, package delivered. All targets confirmed receipt. Phase 2 ready for activation. Uncle Marcus. Emma hopped over to him. "Sarah says we can make pancakes for breakfast. The kind with chocolate chips." "Whatever the princess wants," Marcus said, lifting her up carefully to avoid her cast. "But first, Daddy has to take care of some business." He carried Emma to the living room and settled her on the couch with her coloring books. Sarah followed, her expression serious. "The reporters are gone," she said quietly. "But there's something else. Karen Whitmore tried to call here this morning. 3 times. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "What did she want?" "She sounded desperate. Said she needed to talk to you, that she wanted to apologize. I told her if she came anywhere near this house, I'd call the police." "Good." Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through the news alerts he'd been monitoring. Karen's story was trending nationally now, a cautionary tale about corruption in child welfare systems. The local news had picked up the Rodriguez family's story, and other families were coming forward with their own experiences. "Marcus," Sarah said carefully, "what exactly did you do to her?" "I gave her what she gave everyone else. The truth." But the truth was more complex than that. Marcus had orchestrated Karen's downfall with military precision, turning her own methods against her. Every phone call, every leaked document, every coincidental meeting with her victims, all carefully planned to create maximum psychological impact while staying completely legal. Karen Whitmore was learning what it felt like to be hunted across town. Karen sat in her lawyer's office, staring at a stack of legal documents that represented the complete destruction of her life. Criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy. Civil lawsuits from 47 families seeking damages. Divorce papers. Termination notices from every organization she'd ever volunteered with. The prosecution is offering a plea deal, her lawyer said. 15 years reduced to 8 with good behavior. You'd have to make full restitution to the families and testify against Crossroads Foster Services. Karen's hands shook as she reached for the papers. 15 years. Karen, they have you dead to rights. The recordings, the financial records, the testimony from your victims, there's no defense here. You take the plea, or you go to trial and risk 25 to life. But I was trying to help children. Stop. Her lawyer's voice was sharp. Don't say that again. Not to me, not to anyone. The prosecution has video of you abandoning those children, audio of you talking about profit margins, and a paper trail showing you destroyed dozens of families for money. The helping children narrative is done. Karen stared out the window at the Seattle skyline. Somewhere in this city, Marcus Sullivan was probably reading about her legal troubles in the morning news. Was he satisfied? Had he gotten his revenge? There's something else, her lawyer continued. The families are organizing. They are planning a press conference where they'll all tell their stories publicly. It's going to be devastating. Can we stop it? No. They have every right to speak out. And honestly, Karen, after what you did to them, they deserve to be heard. Karen left the law office feeling like a ghost haunting her own life. Everything familiar had been stripped away: her marriage, her house, which would have to be sold to pay legal fees, her reputation, her purpose. She drove aimlessly through neighborhoods where she'd once been welcomed, past schools where she'd once been respected. She found herself parked outside Sunshine Elementary, watching children play during recess. A month ago, she'd stood in this same spot feeling powerful, important, necessary. Now she was a pariah, a cautionary tale, a reminder of how good intentions could become corrupted. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but she answered anyway. Ms. Whitmore. This is Dr. James Rodriguez. Lisa's my wife. Karen's stomach clenched. So what do you want? I want to understand why you destroyed my family. The line was quiet except for the sound of children playing in the background. Dr. Rodriguez, not a gang member, not a criminal, but a doctor, continued in a voice heavy with pain. I've been in Mexico for 2 years, Karen. 2 years away from my wife and daughter because you told immigration I was dangerous. Do you know what it's like to miss your child's first steps, her first words, her second birthday? Karen closed her eyes. I thought you thought wrong. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I forgave you. The words hit Karen like a physical blow. What? I forgave you because holding on to anger was destroying me too. But forgiveness doesn't mean there aren't consequences. You hurt my family and now you're facing justice for that. I wanted you to know that I don't hate you, but I also want you to understand the depth of what you did. Karen felt tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't bring back the 2 years I lost with my daughter. Sorry doesn't heal the trauma you caused her. Sorry doesn't fix the families you destroyed. The line went quiet again. Then Dr. Rodriguez spoke one more time. I hope you find peace, Karen. I really do. But first, you need to face what you've done. All of it. The call ended, leaving Karen sitting in her car, sobbing in the school parking lot where her reign of terror had finally come to an end. That evening, Marcus was reading Emma a bedtime story when his secure phone rang. He recognized the number, his commanding officer. Sullivan here. Marcus, it's Colonel Hayes. I've been following the news about your situation. How's Emma? She's healing, sir. Physically and emotionally. Good. Listen, I'm calling because the Seattle police have some questions about how certain evidence was obtained in the Whitmore case. Nothing official, but they are curious about the sophistication of the investigation. Marcus felt a cold smile cross his face. I assume they are satisfied with the legality of the evidence. Completely. Everything was obtained through proper channels, albeit with some impressive intelligence work. The question is whether you want to come back to active duty or if you're planning to pursue a different career path. Marcus looked through the doorway at Emma, who was arranging her stuffed animals on her bed with military precision, organizing them by size and color just like her father had taught her. I'm staying here, sir. My daughter needs me. I figured you'd say that. For what it's worth, Marcus, what you did for those families, exposing the corruption, getting them justice, that's good work. The kind of mission that matters. After the call ended, Marcus sat on Emma's bed and smoothed her hair. Daddy, are you really not going away anymore? She asked sleepily. Never again, princess. I'm exactly where I need to be. What about the mean lady? Is she going to try to take me away again? Marcus thought about Karen Whitmore, probably sitting alone in her empty house, finally understanding the weight of her actions. The legal system would handle her punishment, but the real justice was already complete. She'd experienced the same helplessness, the same loss, the same destruction she'd inflicted on others. No, sweetheart. The mean lady learned an important lesson about what happens when you hurt families. She won't be bothering anyone anymore. Emma nodded and closed her eyes. Good. I like our family just the way it is. As his daughter drifted off to sleep, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: complete peace. The mission was accomplished. His family was safe. Justice had been served not through violence, but through truth, consequences, and the power of giving victims their voices back. Karen Whitmore had spent years believing she was untouchable, that she could destroy families without consequences. Now she knew better. Now she understood that some fathers don't just protect their children, they protect all children, by ensuring that predators face the full weight of their actions. The hunter had become the hunted, and the hunted had become the teacher. Class was now in session.